Look here, here comes the Spider-Man. This is strong, this is good. It's got radioactive.
Hey everybody, back again. Today we're taking a look at the bicycle and the water cell, the next two chapters in Persepolis, The Story of a Childhood by Marjane Satrapi. So I wanted to do things a little bit differently today. I wanted to start setting up, looking at these different chapters in the way that you would set up an essay or a question paper, to give you kind of a preview of what you might do with the essay that'll be due after we finish reading this. So if you look at my notes sheet here, I've set up a claim here, and my claim is that Marjane Satrapi's style of flat, monochromatic, or black and white minimalism that rejects correct perspective allows her to depict the brutality and violence of her childhood in a way that doesn't diminish the complexity, but still reminds us that the witness to all of it is a child. So I talked a little bit about this in the last video, this idea of her cartoonish style and what does it mean and why is it drawn in this particular way, especially when she's really talking about some brutal violence that happened during the Islamic Revolution. And in fact, I've read in places where this has been a book that's been mistakenly, because of the look of it, been assigned to elementary school students, which I would not recommend given the kind of bloodiness and brutality that is in the book, even though it's depicted in a way that's not realistic. And we'll see why that's important later. So in terms of my claim, I'm trying to claim that this was the perfect style for her to depict this brutality and violence of her childhood. And that this style isn't, although minimalistic and some may say simple in its presentation, it's actually really capturing a complex world. So what's my evidence? My evidence, first of all, is that, Marjane Satrapi was a trained artist, has multiple degrees in graphic design and art. She could have drawn this in any number of ways. She was very talented, is very talented as an artist, but she chose this particular style, not only because she wanted it to be a cartoonish style that reflects childhood innocence, but she also wanted to connect it to to the Persian culture of visual art that already exists and has existed since the ancient times. So what I have here is two examples of that Persian art, two ancient Persian mural paintings, and you can see the similarities in the style. This, however, is very colorful, and that art was known for its color. So she's kind of taken the same kind of style and stripped it of the color. And you can see even like this, the depiction of the archers over here and the depictions of the archers over here, and how that is kind of similar in look or style. Even though this is even more cartoonish, I would say. The second piece of evidence is that this flat perspective, and it's the same here, this idea that we're not seen from a particular like three-dimensional perspective, that it's flat, it's two-dimensional, often includes arrangements of bodies and almost architectural formations, pyramids, rows, or symmetrical groups. And you can see here, very simply, you can see this kind of thing going on with this group of worshippers at the emperor's feet, all bowing in the same way. And you saw that in the first chapter as well. This large grouping of horsemen, the archers kind of grouped in a certain way. Down here, you see the modern imperialists, the kind of tableau or symbolic picture of the modern imperialist movement, all walking the same way, all looking the same way. You also see it in bodies in Persepolis, dead bodies or dying bodies, in kind of symmetrical patterns laid out. You'll see that more often as we go through the book. The final piece of evidence comes from an interview that Satrapi gave, where she said violence today has become something so normal, but it's not normal. To draw it and put it in color, the color of flesh and the red of blood and so forth, reduces it by making it realistic. So what she's talking about here is that the realism of, if she were to portray it in this kind of photorealistic way, to really bring in the color and the blood red and the flesh color, and to really try to make it more realistic by drawing in these vibrant colors, that somehow makes it reduces the impact. Well, why is that? Well, I would argue that it's that the use of those black and white images, the flat images without shading. Notice there's no real shading in any parts of the book, right? It's all very flat, black and white, monochromatic. But it's those images that is an attempt to portray the starkness of the violence and the brutality. And it does so in a more figurative sense. So it's not a realistic depiction, but she's capturing here the spirits of the bodies of the people that were burned to death when the police locked people in a movie theater, or the police stood by as others locked people in a movie theater and set it on fire. And these spirits kind of escaping the bodies that have been burned up, right? That's depicting that violence and brutality. And the black and white just makes that stark. It makes it, spill from the page, and you also get that same kind of architectural formation, that kind of arrangement of bodies that calls back the ancient Persian visual culture as well. But make no mistake, it's stylized. It's stylized to separate it from real violence, because that real violence is the violence that Marjane Satrapi said we're numb to.